I set a very, very modest goal, and the goal was this: that I would run at least 1 mile every day until I pass away. I'm not climbing El Cap, but I've been fighting stage 4 cancer for 20 years. I've wanted to know that at the end, I went for it, I tried, gave it everything I had.
All right, welcome and thanks for joining us. Today we are talking about, and we are here with the team that created The Life We Have, a film from REI. My name is Zach Kazin. I was one of the selection committee members for Brand Storytelling 2025. I've been part of this community for a number of years and worked in the brand storytelling space previously at Vox Media and Red Bull for over a decade. And I had a really great experience watching this film. It is, as if you have watched it or will see it, both inspiring, really exciting to watch, hits home in a number of different ways, and honestly hits a lot of great tones for what a brand can do by telling a wonderful story. So I'm excited to dive in and have my own personal chat with four of the great people who made this possible. So before we get into it, I'm going to have the team introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Hanna Boyd from REI.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Hanna Boyd. I manage REI's content marketing and films program. And for this project, I was the executive producer and got to work with the folks on the line.
Sam, who are you?
I ask myself that question every day, but in this particular moment, I am the director of the film.
Amazing. Greg?
Yeah, my name is Greg. I'm from Wondercamp. We're the production company that helped create this story with Sam, and I was the cinematographer.
Fantastic. And Rob, please let us know who you are if somebody has not yet watched this.
Hey, I'm the person in the story that's crying and talking and trying to make sense and all that good stuff. So just honored to be in the story. I'm the person in the story, I guess.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being so vulnerable for us and letting us see your story. Let's literally start at the beginning, and I'll kick it over to Hanna, but I'm very curious, how did REI find this story and where did this begin?
Yeah, it probably conversation started back in as early as like 2021 or 22. And we chatted with Rob, and kind of initially we're talking more about just Rob's love of running, and he was coming off a very long run streak and long races and just a lot of running. So we were just learning about Rob, and also learning about him doing all of those feats through various stages of treatment and living with cancer. And I think as we talked about different kinds of stories we could tell or content we could make, whether it's Rob's expertise on what shoes to wear, because he's used a lot of shoes over the years, or a podcast with his story, we really ultimately felt like it was just like warranted a film format. Truly, after getting off a call with Rob for like 15 minutes or an hour, you're like, wow, I could listen to Rob share his any number of insights for hours. So we just knew that a film was what the story warranted, and we were lucky that Rob was interested in, yeah, also open to sharing the story. So.
And from the other side of that, Rob, when you were approached or you started talking, how did you feel? And did you have a sense of what kind of story you would like to let in to be told about you?
Yeah, obviously, it's just really surreal and honored, absolutely, to have anybody at all interested in my story or sharing it in some capacity. Just absolutely honored to get on the phone calls at the very beginning and just talk about that stuff. And then obviously for it to like come to fruition, and have these wonderful people come down and be a part of this and really become family in lots of ways. I absolutely honored and a little bit surreal. I was pretty thoughtful, I think, man, about how how my story is shared. I naturally, and everybody on here knows, have not necessarily wanted a lot of like undue attention for myself per se, but really felt compelled and almost a responsibility. I remember just personally 20 years ago now being diagnosed stage 4, and I remember trying to find other stories about people who had similar circumstances and if they survived. I remember reaching out to authors and people in the cancer community or other areas of life to just learn more about like overcoming, and I looked for those examples of encouragement. So I really felt a responsibility to maybe share this for people like me, to be encouraged. And I was so honored, and I'm so honored now and grateful to them that they allowed me to share this in this capacity. I will be absolutely eternally grateful for that. But as far as how the story told and stuff, yeah, I definitely have been thoughtful about, like I said, undue attention towards me. But really, I know I learned so much from the courage of others, and if somehow I could help encourage in some way, yeah, man, I felt so moved to do that, absolutely, and I'm so grateful, man. I mean, yeah, so grateful.
We appreciate it. And honestly, if you hadn't, I haven't met you and you hear 30 seconds of you talking. And as somebody who's worked on stories, it's sort of, there's the life you have and what became the story, but also just you as a person. You seem great. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
It almost seems flippant in the context to ask this next question, but it's useful for our community, which is always sort of, how does this fit into the brand's strategy? Before we dive deeper into the creative and how it came to life, I'm very curious to come back to you, Hanna, on that, because REI has been telling great stories, some that sort of have similar tones to this, some that don't, and sort of how once you arrived on what this was going to be, how this fit in.
Yeah. I mean, REI, like at the highest level, really exists to help inspire and equip people to get outside and to find the joy and community that can come from spending time outside. So in some ways that means like having a robust expertise library where people can follow along to learn how to gear up for something or like train for something. And then in another regard, it means telling stories through film, podcast, editorial that are really focused on inspiring people to get outside. And for us, that kind of mandate has been, for as long as the film program has been really around, is focusing on challenging what has been kind of a historically narrow depiction of getting outside in a lot of ways, and really ensuring we're shining a light on people who have a really meaningful story to tell. And that doesn't need to look like summiting a literal mountain or, whatever, like breaking a record. And there's a line that I don't know if it's in the final cut or not, but Rob's like reflecting on his story not being about summiting Everest or like big wave surfing. But as someone who's been close to this project, or as I hope like a viewer would experience the project, I think the physical and mental, emotional, spiritual kind of journey that Rob is on and that is reflected in the film, I think, in my opinion, surpasses what a lot of people think of like stereotypical outdoorsy feats. And so for us, it's a really meaningful story. And that has always been part of our like story mandate for as long as the films and program has been around.
Love it. So Sam, I'm going to come to you. When you jumped in and thought about this, how did you initially think about approaching telling this story? Was it a sort of jump in and start understanding what was happening and shoot? Did you have a sense of where you're going to go? I'm sort of curious about the process and honestly the journey you went on as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of both. I think at the very beginning, like Rob and I had a long Zoom conversation before ever showing up. We had a number of phone calls and text messages, and I think going in, I had a pretty good sense of Rob as a person and what kind of the overall story might be. However, I do think it shifted quite a bit on our very first trip. I think, at that point, Rob hadn't hit these health complications that came a few months later. And to be honest, the film team was thinking, I mean, definitely I was thinking too, this was going to be a much more short and perhaps simple story. And then, we kind of took our footage from the first trip, went home, and a couple months later, Rob texted me like, "Hey man, I'm going through a really rough time," and we kind of, as creatives and as Rob and as a whole team, had to decide, oh my gosh, how do we go with this? What is the story that we want to tell now, and how is this going to affect the whole thing? So it's safe to say, from I think all of our perspectives, this film started out as one thing and became a lot more complex. And it's been an amazing journey for me personally, also as a filmmaker. And um, there's a lot more I could say, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, sort of same vein, Greg, on your end, as you were sort of jumping in and thinking about how this production was going to come together. I'm really curious about how that was as you started, and I also am like personally very curious when it comes to thinking about the way in which you all created the cinematic world of this. But I'll hold on that for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think with our approach, we reached out to Sam. Sam's a good friend of ours that we all went to school with, I don't know, over a decade ago, 14 years ago. And I think we wanted to bring Sam into the fold to direct this because it was a delicate story. I mean, we talked to Rob beforehand, and we have a great working relationship with Hanna and the team at REI, but wanting to bring Sam in because he has such a like delicate nature and such a thorough understanding and like just a desire to understand the people that he's working with. And we knew that if Sam was hooked on the story, that he'd be in it for the long run. Like he'd be in it just as deep as we are. And yeah, I mean, we're on like what, 18 months of being a part of this film. And here he is, like still fully committed. It takes a lot of work to talk to subjects or characters or like want to be invested and stay invested even after filming. And so that was just a huge thing for us, was like wanting to build this trust with Rob, wanting to build a good relationship, and having someone like Sam kind of like lead the creative and lead the ship on that was what we were hoping for would be like the first key to success.
Yeah, I mean, you both kind of just touched on this a little bit, but there are obviously some challenges in telling the stories and ebbs and flows as it went. I want to ask sort of all of you, but I'm going to start with you, Rob, sort of as
Yeah.
this started happening, right? Like the challenges you faced personally, but then mixing that with the fact that there's a team here creating a
Yeah.
film about your life. How did that go down? How did it feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all talked about it, and we were really transparent and honest about it being a part of the story, and being vulnerable and kind of honest. And I just know personally it meant a lot. It meant a great deal to me to be able to share that part of it, man. Some of that really intimate stuff that kind of happens as things happen, whether that be doctor's appointments, or you can even see one of my scans in the film. um I think it meant something, to me, or hear the doctor use certain words and whatnot, to be completely transparent and honest with people that are watching this. And being for us to be able to like share that, I think means a lot. And I think it means a lot for people that are going through different things, and through other people that are facing cancer challenges or whatnot. So I felt compelled, and I felt a duty, with this, to be honest. to really be honest. And I think everybody was on board with that. That was the story. I mean, that's what happened. That's my oncologist talking. You know what I mean? That's that's me. That's my scan. That's my, that's the port that's in my chest right now. So, being honest was what mattered most, man. So, I think we all got there. Easy? No, absolutely not. I mean, sitting in a cancer clinic and trying to do my little LaCroix commercial while Sam and them are over there, with the video cameras. It's no, not typical, that's not typical. But honestly, I see it even now as a great honor, um, to be able to document how hair comes out of people when they go through chemotherapy, and me pulling my beard out, with my hands or it falling off my head. I think is a great honor for other cancer patients and other people that go through anything in life. So I see that as a part of the story, and grateful to be able to tell it. Truly.
Yeah, for me as a viewer, sort of each one of the beats that clearly was just, this is what's happening, and
Yeah.
now we're going to figure out how to tell this story,
Yeah.
felt like another dimension to seeing your world, but also, to your point, just finding relatability and how much that is not just your story.
Right.
I will say,
right. Not just mine.
Yeah. Sam, to come back to you, and you mentioned this, there was a point where you thought it might be a quick short story, but then, Rob kind of opened the door again to say, hey, there's more here, and collectively you guys figured that out. As you get deeper into the film, the scene, when we get to see Rob sing, kind of brings this level of human connection, or at least for me, that I thought was really fantastic. And I'm curious, like, going into that and then going into post, right? Like, was that something that, as that was planned as an event, you were like, this is going to be an incredible scene, or was it a complete, let's see what happens? And then, how did you all feel as you captured that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it was both. I think that there was a lot of planning that went into that event. And I think after we heard Rob play music for the first time, I think all of us were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, how can we bring music into the film? And as we kind of planned the third trip out there, the musical show was probably the central event. And so we all kind of had a lot of anticipation and were really excited about it. But I do remember also, I mean, I feel like Rob, you didn't quite tell us how amazing it would be, because
Woo.
we were there on the first day. Like, we all flew out to San Antonio and we were there with our cameras, and man, as soon as Rob started the show, all of us like looked at each other after the first song, like, this is happening right now. Wow. So we were definitely taken aback in a really good way.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to use that as a jumping off point to go back to the question I slid into you, Greg, about thinking about the sort of way you shot this. So you got a scene like that. You've got running scenes. You've got the idea of, like this film opens, in a way that creates pace with time directly and in multiple ways. I'm just curious how you figured out and thought about the visual language. And I know that's also in partnership with Sam, but I'm really just curious to think about that.
Yeah, well, it was really fun to work with Sam. He's an incredibly talented cinematographer
Yeah.
as well. And so, I mean, from like the get-go, gosh, so much of it was just like after showing up there, I think Sam and I were just like, we just need to cover everything as much as we can. Like we're both just running around with a camera, trying to just like, there was so much happening in between rooms or with Rob and his brother, just like these unexpected moments. And we just wanted it to be as honest and like simple or observational as possible in some ways, which just meant like rolling on everything that we could. We wanted to play with a lot of prisms and just like different in-camera visual effects to almost like blend this sense of like what it's like to be in Rob's mind in a way, like pulling in these different visceral feelings and light leaks and yeah, prismatic effects, just to show this like almost unique calmness that Tim that would Rob would talk about, or that he would show, and just try and represent that in a different artistic style. And then yeah, the running was its own, like, it's hard to run with a big camera sometimes, and
Yeah.
when you're doing it every day, I mean, yeah, there was a day where it was like 107 degrees outside, and Rob's like, all right, we're going for a run. We're like, okay, whatever you say. But again, it was just wanting to accurately portray as much as we could and not really get in the way. Just kind of watch him go for a run and hear what he's saying, try and mic him up as good as we can, and just experience those moments with him.
I love that. I'm going to quickly ask about the running, and then I have a few more questions. But Rob, how is running going? And generally having these guys jump in to that and add, I don't want to say an extra level of pressure, but an extra level of, there are people following me run. I know forever you did it for yourself, but it became, and it is now, sort of an inspiration for so many others, I think, and I hope it will be more. How was that?
Yeah, I think the thing that's so interesting about, the running part of it, which is obviously been super important to me, and getting outside in general, just getting outside and experiencing the outdoors and in whatever way. I think the great thing about it, it was cool for them to like be a part of it, because so much of it was, kind of like the solitary around the block. I think we were trying to figure out how many thousands of miles I've run in my block alone, which I know is over 10,000, well over in the tens of thousands just in my neighborhood. So I know every yard, I know their Christmas lights every year. I know exactly when things change all over. It was super cool to have them be a part of it. The way that running is now is, I think it's been, and this is as important, I think, for the story, is as things evolve, it may not be running anymore. It may be walking. So this morning I walked, and I was so grateful to be able to walk. That's all I was able to do today and all I'm able to do right now. And I'm so grateful to be able to do that. And so much about this is getting outside, and I don't care if it's gardening or, going to the local park and walking around. It's about finding a place where you find beauty and meaning and staying there. And whatever, and music, whatever it is for you, making films, whatever it is for you in your life. And running is huge for me. It's been a massive one. Um, so grateful to be able to share that with them, and something that very much was a practice for me, man. I mean, running for me was not ever, and I've ad nauseum talked to Sam about this, not necessarily about like entering races or, I'm not fast at all. I mean, so glad to be able to just move forward. It was about a daily practice with myself, no different than any other practice that you do. So it was just about being able to share that, man. And yeah, super cool that they were able to like capture that. And I'm still like today, I still got out on the same road, and I said hello to the same people. It's and with my little scratchy voice, and kind of covered that exact same loop I did in the film, man. And grateful to be able to do it.
It's incredible. I mean, I to your point, the message of it, right? The idea of keeping going and moving forward is something that I hope you feel, and this is about to happen bigger, is that this film will amplify
Yeah.
and will grow further. So I am, to talk a little bit about distribution and what you all are thinking. Hanna, I'm curious to come to you of, what REI is thinking, and I know it's somewhat early days with this film, but where do you foresee this film going, and what's its path?
Yeah, we are really excited to share it more broadly in the beginning of next year on REI's channels, and then still ironing out kind of the full distribution. But part of that, to the point of I think everything we've talked about in this conversation, is people being able to watch it together in community and having like a smaller setting where you're really sitting with the message and like thinking about it in a different way than you might, or one might in a YouTube environment or like in a different digital environment. So we're also working on some private and smaller screenings for folks that have either a deep connection with Rob personally or with the message in a more direct way. So, and then also, submitting to festivals and kind of the usual things that one would do with the film, but we want to make sure that there's extra care taken with setting up smaller environments for people to really connect with the film and message in small community.
Cool. And did sort of like zoom out a bit further from that as well. When you think about from REI's perspective, what sort of success is for this film and how you all think about measuring that success. That goes a little bit away from the heartfelt nature of the story and the inspiration here, and more a little bit into the why brands are part of this kind of stuff. But I'm curious to dive in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for success for this film, I have come back to a conversation that I had with Rob some, I don't know, weeks back at this point, where we talked a lot about like what success would look like for this film. And through that, I feel like there are like three things that I think of all the time when I think of this film, when I think about Rob's story, and what we want people to take away from it. And so like I could say quantitative or qualitative measures, but in actuality, success for this film really does look like the first piece being like perception shift for viewers to actually think of their life and appreciate it in each day and each moment in their community and what they experience differently and in a more like in an appreciative sense. I'm doing probably a poor job at articulating this, Rob, because as you can hear in this conversation, Rob, when Rob shares these things, it's just, yeah, it's the kind of thing that just sticks with you. And then the second one we've talked about was really having greater empathy and seeking to understand other people with unseen malady or disease, especially. And then the third piece is just feeling inspired to get outside. To Rob's point, maybe that looks like running, maybe it looks like gardening, walking your dog, what have you. So those three pieces, like, we obviously need to share it with people so they can have that experience and have those takeaways. But at the end of the day, success looks like viewers encountering the film and feeling that after watching it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of it, people want to have like, what's the perfect formula to be like, this is success. But I think a lot of it, to your point, is it connects right back to what the brand's all about and is just a human story. And I think, I'm going to wrap us, because I think this is really great to sort of just get people to feel what it is and feel their own thing with this film. But I want to ask the others of you, right? Less mechanical, less about, is this going to work for a brand? How does it feel? But from each of your perspective of what is that success for this film? What else would you like to come out of it? What's something that you may have learned in making it about the way you can tell stories or about yourself? Any of those sort of feelings of like, okay, we made this thing. Let's step back and say, okay, this did, you fill in the blank. So I'll open it to see who's got an answer first, and you guys can go from there.
I can start with that. I am very excited to get this film out and for people to see it. I think getting to spend so much time with Rob and just so much time on the story has been like a big, just like life-changing moment for us as filmmakers and as individuals. I think like I a year ago would not identify as a runner, and it feels weird to be here a year later, and like largely because of Rob and seeing like what it's done for him. And it's like a huge thing that I've taken up in the last year, and it's been just like a quiet space. It's been a way to explore our hometown, the trails, just to think. And then to even have those quiet moments where, there's a line in the film where Rob says, I'm in pain, but like I'm lucky to have been in pain this long. I think it's a way that I look at running now, because it's not always fun and it is painful sometimes, but man, I get to feel that. And how lucky. Like I would never have thought or had that perspective shift before meeting Rob and getting to be a part of this film. So I hope that that's something that people can take away. It doesn't have to be with running or physical sport or anything like that, but just the fact that they get to feel discomfort or feel joy or anything in what they do gives a whole different appreciation and gratitude for life in general.
Sam?
Greg, I wish we'd recorded that, man. That was amazing.
This is a panel being
Oh, we did
recorded.
record it.
Don't you
Okay,
worry.
Yeah, I would just honestly echo and bold and underline everything Greg said, because that feels just exactly what I hope to. I want people to feel. I want people to cry. I want people to reflect. I want people to make changes in their lives after seeing this film. And that's all I can ask for.
Amazing. Rob, anything else? I mean, you've kind of imparted upon us many ways of thinking already today, but anything else coming out of this as it hits the world beyond our small walls? How are you feeling?
Just so, to hear these words and hear everybody talk about it just means so much. To have the opportunity to share in this way and afford me this unique opportunity. And I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm so glad that we got to see different parts, of this experience. I'm glad we did the music show. I'm so glad we did it. It was awesome. I got to sing Les Mis in front of a bunch of people and it be on a show. And yeah, it's a wonderful experience. But what I want people to take from it, and all that matters to me, and I really don't deserve, and I mean this, undue attention. There's so many, like you said, it's not just my story, it's the story of a lot of folks. And I just, if someone and other folks can find, like Greg said, that place, if it's running or whatever, that they can find joy and meaning and purpose. I'm a big Viktor Frankl, man's search for meaning reader. And if this can be just some part of empowering and giving courage, because things are hard, and I'm certainly an imperfect human with anxieties and stresses and all those kinds of things as well. And really every day trying to find that anchor of perspective that, like Hanna talked about too, that the film hopefully provides too, just a constant anchor of perspective, to look at my dog and smile, to go for a jog and drink it in, to acknowledge when things are hard and that we're human beings, and all of those things, and still find a way to keep moving forward and finding beauty in the midst of that. If this can be any part of that for anybody, whether it be at a film festival, whether it be on YouTube, in whatever manner it's shared, I'm just so freaking honored to be a part of it. I'm so grateful. So that's it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. We've got to end it there. I mean, that's really fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. Congrats on being an official selection of Brand Storytelling 2025. And I'm excited for the broader world to be able to see this film and what you all do next. Thanks.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.